All right. We are live on the One Lap Down podcast Facebook page. Joe's here, Brad's here as always, and our special guest this week is Brittany Coffey, who works for NASCAR. Brittany, it looks a lot more beautiful where you are than where I am. Brad's kind of in the middle. How are you doing so far today?
Good. Came in. I got the week off, so that's always a good thing. They gave us off until the 4th, so 2 weeks off. Not going to complain about that, and I'm not going to complain about the view either. So,
Well, for those that can't tell what it is, can you explain where you are and kind of the shock that I had when I realized where you were? It's so cool.
yeah. So I'm at headquarters, basically in Daytona Beach. We have the big. I call it the glass house. If you could see it from the outside, it would be self-explanatory. It's pretty much a big glass building, and then behind us we got the track, obviously. So gearing up for 2021 and Rolex 24-hour race coming up in January, and then Speed Weeks, of course, and all the changes.
Well, to get us started, I don't want to give away too much about what you do, but you did list yourself as an account executive, consumer sales. You're obviously there in Florida. Do you specifically just work with that racetrack, or are you all over the place?
Yeah, so I cover 11 tracks. So basically for people who are super familiar, it's like all the old ISC tracks. So I've got like Talladega, Michigan, up by you guys, Richmond and Martinsville, Darlington. So we've got 11 that we'll cover. Daytona obviously being the most convenient, it's right here. And then from there, we'll cover all 11, a lot of consumer sales, basically anything from like a Sunday grandstand ticket to Lake Lloyd here in Daytona, which is our premium camping. So it's a wide range of like hospitality, grandstand tickets, and camping, all the things.
Brad, I'll let you hop in here.
Yeah, one thing cool to note is that I'm visiting my family, and I'm about 2 miles away from Texas Motor Speedway, where they are here outside of Fort Worth, Texas. So it's pretty cool every time I come in to get to go by that track. And that's the only race that I have been to. Unfortunately, it was IndyCar race. I didn't get to see the NASCAR race there yet. So looking forward to getting to that one as soon as we're able to. So I guess kind of following up with Joe, for people that are watching with us, can you tell us a little bit about how you got to the position you're at and kind of where the passion for your job came from?
Yeah, so I originally, kind of like I grew up in racing. My dad, has been coming out to Daytona. He grew up in the area. So when I was younger, did a lot of the summer races here, and then obviously the local stuff, Richmond and Martinsville back home. And from there, we just racing all the time for the most part. Then I kind of, you're a teenage girl, you kind of fall out of racing. It's not like the popular thing to do. So kind of phased out of a little bit. And then by college, again, really picked it back up and kind of said, hey, look, like after college, I know that this is what I want to do. But the move, it was either Charlotte or here in Daytona, and that wasn't realistic for me. So I didn't want to move away immediately. So just kind of took a while. Got married in 2017 and finally was like, all right, like it's now or never. Like let's see what we can do with this. So moved it down here to Florida October of 2017 and took a while. Didn't want to settle for a position, but knew that it was so close. And then of course driving by it every day, you're like, all right, like we're gonna have to start diving in. Eventually came across, I think it was like a LinkedIn page, and my previous boss just literally slid into her DMs and was like, hey, like I see you guys are hiring, and was like, I'd love to chat about the positions you guys have open, and came in and met with her and then our director and kind of did the full conversation and, did some, the typical interview stuff, went through that process. And they basically here we hire, obviously this year's been a little different, but they do like a January and June hiring events for our team, and got into the January group and kind of wasn't sure, January's felt very, very soon from fall of last year. So I was like, kind of bit the bullet and jumped in on it. And on the sales side of it, it was completely new for me. Previously I was working in like the medical field. So much more managing then versus now. It's just, you're kind of on the front lines talking to fans every day, which is in this year, it's I guess a blessing and a curse, but kind of can't predict with the year we've had, some of the things. But I mean, for the year we've had, it's been incredible for sure.
Yeah, that's been something that Joe and I talk about a lot on the podcast here, where he's kind of the experienced racing fan. I'm the one that's new to it, and this year is what got me into racing with our friends and having kind of NASCAR carry that torch and get into the first live sports back on television back in May, and I've had a blast watching it. It's been fantastic, but I can imagine it's been a very stressful few months for you all in on the inside, and so. Maybe it's a chance to say we appreciate how much work went into it.
Yeah, it was like I said, this year was interesting. I don't have anything to compare it to, which I guess is probably awesome. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know what last year was like for our team, and I came into it and was lucky enough to be promoted through all of this. And it was just, I think now we've all kind of understand what 2021 is going to look like. So, we know worst case scenario after this year. Worst case scenario is like we don't have fans in the stands. And we've been able to combat that and go into 2021 and just say, hey, look, like, these are the cards we've been dealt. We know what worst case scenario is, and we can run with it.
On the form that you filled out, you mentioned your dad was into merch sales at the track. So detail for us what that was compared to what you deal with, how you do your job.
Yeah, so my dad was much more on like the independent side of things. So, he did some work with like, if you're super, like obviously Carrie Earnhardt, everybody knows that last name. So, did a lot of work with him, like selling his merchandise, autograph sessions on like the haulers. And if we kind of did away with the haulers for a short period where they went over to like the Fanatics tents. But we're kind of phasing back into haulers trackside, which is for an older race fan, very, very happy for them. Yeah. But so previously when he was doing it, it was strictly haulers for the most part. So he had his own like haulers merchandise. He wasn't necessarily driver specific, but did a lot of just trackside merch sales as far as t-shirts, die-cast cars, lanyards, like whatever anything you would see trackside, pretty much he would sell. But yeah, a lot of like autograph sessions. I remember, Brendan Gaughan, he was like always around on the Dodge trailer. So kind of got to hang out with him a lot as a kid. Robert Presley, like names that are older for some folks, but, so got to do a lot of that stuff and be present on that side of things. But, you got to go into the races still and see folks and see, some of the race usually, but there were long, long, exhausting days. So now it's more so like client visits. So, I'll call somebody and, I've got some clients that are like premium hospitality, being like, anything you can imagine as far as suites and stuff like that go. So, now I'll go visit those folks and just make sure they're happy with whatever their purchase was. Or like I said, they could be a standard grandstand seat and just saying, hey, look, like, are you happy with what we had this year? Do we need to move your rows? Do you want to shift from turn 1 to turn 4? Do you want to be closer to the start finish line? So just kind of building those relationships and seeing what they're going to want year after year to keep them coming back. So it's much different now, obviously, trackside sales with my dad, it was like, thanks, see you later. And you'll probably never see that person again. Whereas now, like, I need to do everything I can to make sure that person's calling me back and locking in their seats and coming back year after year.
You mentioned Robert Presley. He drove the Jasper car, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yep. Do you have any of that old merch? I know, like, nowadays for myself, finding the old stuff is really cool.
Oh, him specifically, I think I've got like some of his die cast. I definitely have some like hats and like pictures of like me and him that he's like signed through the years. But as far as like collecting vintage t-shirts, like that is my love language. I have so many vintage t-shirts. Like I don't know when this addiction started, but I have dove completely in and like I'm forever looking for vintage shirts.
Well, I'm glad I came home because I found a couple. I'm actually wearing one right now.
That's a good look ahead for. Yeah. Oh,
go ahead, sir.
I lost you for a second, Joe. I think am I back in it now?
Yes.
There we are. That's a good segue, because later on in our podcast, since we don't have many races to talk about right now, we're doing our top 10 last minute holiday gifts for racing fans. So little preview of a gift that I found, a t-shirt for Cole Trickle. I don't know if you know that name, Joe.
Yeah.
That's one that I know, but not because I'm a racing fan, but because I like movies. And I think that's kind of one of the things that I want to talk about too. Is you talk about now kind of the difference. You used to just kind of have a great time, sell merchandise. Now it's cultivating relationships. And for me, kind of looking in and getting into these different avenues, what are NASCAR fans like? What are the type of people that you work with? And you're obviously not the exact person, but what do you see are some of the things that bring NASCAR fans together?
Yeah, it's funny. Like, I've been to a lot of tracks, and I probably would consider myself like the average fan. But now, we call each track. So, we'll do these campaigns where, I'm calling Michigan specific tracks, because Michigan and Talladega are my core tracks. So just the demographic difference between calling folks for Talladega versus, Michigan. Michigan, you might get like a casual race fan that just, it's convenient for them and that's where they want to go, or they're like a hardcore camper. Talladega, they're there to party 100%. They want a good time. That's the biggest kind of difference. So you can kind of get to know each fan base and what's bringing them out. Daytona 500, a lot of folks, it's a bucket list. Everybody wants to come to the 500, and that's what brings them out. And you've got some people, like I know my dad, for instance. I think I asked him at the beginning of this year, and he had some ridiculous 40 years he's been coming to the Daytona 500. He's probably missed a year or two there, or couldn't make it into the track for whatever reason. But growing up here, he's got a crazy streak. So just kind of, you meet people that's their story. They come year after year. And if they're a camper, they've gotten to know somebody that they've camped with for a very long time, and hey, we want to camp with these people. These friends have turned into family. I've got some clients that I talk to that have road tripped across the country just with someone that they met at the racetrack, which is always a really cool story.
That's super cool. I think that's one of the things that I really enjoy most about sporting events. And, Joe and I have talked before. I lived in Memphis, Tennessee for a while and was the season ticket holder for the Memphis Grizzlies there. And you get to know, the people that are around you in those season tickets, and you get to, the community aspect really grows once you start going to these events in person. And
absolutely.
Yeah, that's one thing I'm excited to get to a NASCAR race. Hopefully down there in Florida at some point. Definitely over here at Texas Motor Speedway, and I know Joe and I are pushing hard for Martinsville and in Bristol. Hopefully COTA down in Austin as well, right? Right, Joe?
Yes, coming up in May. Since they got everybody there, it just seems like a no-brainer for sure. I got a question about the fan stuff as well. On the flip side of that, in the last 5, 8, 10 years. There have been, in terms of the popularity of NASCAR, it's fluctuated. And my situation has been documented as far as I left it because it was the same people all the time winning. And then I'm back into it now. Do you get to sense any of that from your conversation with fans? Is that something, when people talk about numbers and the lack of attendance and the lack of viewership, can you feel any of that with the job that you do, or is that really not touch what you do?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely touches it's been documented too on our end, obviously I blame that on the Facebook people for watching. Facebook, I always will tell clients on the phone, I'm like, Facebook is a dark place. You cannot trust everything that you read on Facebook. It's definitely, we've had to take grandstands out at places. We did it here in Daytona. It's happened for sure. And we know that for fact. But this year alone, COVID's almost been a benefit. I think I saw some statistic on Twitter recently. I don't remember the exact numbers, but we gained on viewership after the year we've had. I think that's going to play into our favor moving forward. So overall, I think we're safe. You know what I mean? I would never say that attendance is down. It's not the 90s. But I also think that's why we saw a schedule shakeup. There's a lot of folks that are very, very excited to get into these new demographics with Nashville. I'm personally very excited for Nashville and hope I'm there. You guys are talking about COTA, like there's going to be some cool changes that are bringing new people out next year. So I think next year will be a kind of a good big picture to see what that attendance will look like, I guess I would say, moving forward.
Just real quick for everybody watching this on Facebook, she's not talking about you. You know, we're good. This podcast is good. We are good.
Absolutely.
I don't know how much information we spread. We definitely don't spread misinformation.
Right.
But maybe just passion. It's a passion podcast.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, and I think too, that was one thing they talked about viewership and kind of pivoting and seeing a lot of exciting things. You can really tell that there is a lot of innovation going on in NASCAR.
Absolutely.
What are some of those other things? I know you talked about Nashville and Circuit of the Americas in Austin for people that don't know the COTA acronym. What are some of the other things that you kind of see, maybe not just race specific, that NASCAR is doing that you're excited about coming up in the next couple of years?
I don't get to have too much insight. I know the schedule is just going to be the biggest thing that we've kind of been pushing. That's going to be a little bit different year after year versus like a long-term, I mean, I don't remember the last time we really saw a shakeup like this in the schedule. And I guess COVID is the biggest thing that has probably allowed for that to happen. As far as I was reading actually an article this morning about going down to like the 1 and 2 day shows. You're not necessarily going to have all this practice and qualifying leading up to the cup race. Some people love it, some people hate it. But it's, again, you can't always please everyone. And that's the biggest thing that I've kind of, talked to people about is, NASCAR definitely does their research. They're not just going to do something that's going to displease everyone. So I think that that's huge, but I think that's the other thing that's the biggest shakeup that we'll see is, changes as far as the structure of a weekend with 1 and 2 day shows, no practice, no qualifying at some places. I don't know what that's going to look like yet, but I think that'll be another exciting thing we'll have moving forward.
Let me ask you, let's both ask you some questions about being a fan and your passion for motorsports. I'll leave the childhood question to Brad. I want to know why you like Ryan Blaney and see if it matches up with why I like Ryan Blaney.
So for me, it's like just a series of who I've liked as far as drivers go. Really young, I loved Kyle Petty. I don't know why. I think it was the mellow yellow in the hair. I don't know. But loved Kyle Petty. And then from there, it kind of went like a Dale Sr., Dale Jr. route. And when I dropped off, it was Dale Jr. And I remember 100% picking back up the night that Dale Jr. won the 500, and it was like a rain delayed race, and it went until like midnight, I would say. It was super late. But I remember staying up, and since he won the 500, 100% was like all in again. And then I know he was really good friends with Ryan Blaney. Like Ryan Blaney's younger. I'm like, all right, he's going to be around for a while. That's the other thing too, was big for me. It's not like I want him to win all the time, but I'm 9 times out of 10, I can find a reason to cheer for anybody. There's some, obviously we're race fans. There's going to be people we don't want to see win, or just get sick of seeing win, I guess might be the better phrase for that. But so that's kind of, for me, it was just the evolution of, I was a Dale Jr. fan. Ryan Blaney lived on his property. They were friends. He likes dinosaurs and Star Wars. Like they're all like easy to like about him.
Yeah. Hard to go against that. Plus, nobody makes aviators and a mustache look much better either.
100%. I agree.
That guy rocks it. He rocks it. All right, Brad. Enough gloating from us.
I solely picked my favorite driver because I was forced into picking one right away, like before that first race even started. So I just picked Brad Keselowski because we have the same name, and it worked out pretty well. I didn't know that he was as good as he is. So
that's we have actually a friend from college. He did the same exact thing. His baseball number was 2, and we took him to his first race. He was like, I think Brad was probably racing, I don't know what he's got the white rims or whatever in his car. Mm-hmm. He was like, oh, he's got those and he drives a 2. I'm going to go with Brad K. So, and ever since then he's had really good luck with him. So, I mean, whatever the logic to get you there, it is what it is.
Well, so my question along the same lines, if you can kind of separate the driver away from the car, I think Joe and I have talked about when I was little, we didn't watch much racing, but I had a Texaco like Matchbox car, and it was like my favorite. I don't even know who drove that car, but it was who drove that car, Joe, back in the day, the Texaco car. You're supposed to know these things. Brittany, maybe you.
Sorry.
But it was like my favorite car. So I remember anytime I saw it on, that's the car I would cheer for. Or if my parents had to stop for gas, I was furious if they didn't go to Texaco. It's crazy the way the marketing worked on an 8-year-old. But what do you think, kind of what is your favorite like car setup or like just paint scheme that you've ever seen?
The one that stands out only because it sits on my desk as of recently is the Ryan Blaney Kobe Bryant tribute car. That was like the first die-cast recently that I was like, all right, this is the one I'm getting. That one's huge, just because of the year with Kobe Bryant and that whole thing. But other than that, like if we're going like old school, I'm always going to go Kyle Petty and like mellow yellow. Like it's just, I've got the vintage t-shirt with it on it. Like I'm very, very drawn to that.
That's awesome. I remember I had the Texaco car, and I had a bigger one that was the mellow yellow car. So that was also one of my favorites.
Let me try to redeem myself here, because Coach Smith is going to be very upset that we didn't know that Texaco car was Davey Allison. And then when he passed away, Ernie Irvin took over. And then when I was growing up, maybe this is the car you had, Brad. Kenny Irwin actually drove that car. And unfortunately, he passed away too while driving the car. So a little bit of bad mojo on the Texaco car. But nevertheless, you had one of those three, and it wasn't a bad thing. That's for sure. So sorry to everybody out there who was yelling at the screen.
I got to find it somewhere. I'm at my parents' house, right? So it must be inside somewhere. I'm going to go dig it up. So. Feature it on our social media. There's a little hook to get people to look us up.
Yeah, absolutely. I found some gems in my room too. Some old stuff. Of course, it's all Mark Martin, but we'll be posting that on Facebook and such as well. All right. Last thing I want to ask is talking about favorite moments as a fan. I think a lot of us have one where we leave the door open to have more. I know mine, as from a NASCAR perspective, was the very first race I ever went to, and Mark Martin won the race. So happy days for an 8-year-old Joe. But what about yours, Brittany? What was a moment that either got you started on this passion, or even after it had already started, something that sticks with you today?
I probably have two. The older one being, we were never allowed to go to the 500 until we were 18. Like that was Dad's rule. Like you don't get to go to the Daytona 500 until you're 18, and you can take care of yourself. That way Dad doesn't have to babysit. So I always grew up coming down, like I said, to the summer race here when it was July 4th weekend or the firecracker. It's changed a million times, but it's my dad's favorite story to tell. But when there was a backstretch down here, we were sitting on the backstretch and they were going to end the race under a red flag, and Jeff Gordon was going to win, and Dale Jr. I think was in second, and everybody was irate. So they had given away free seat cushions prior to the race, and the entire backstretch was just flooded with seat cushions because people were basically protesting that we were going to be ending under the red flag. And I remember taking a pizza box and like a Frisbee and just chucking it out to the backstretch. And my dad was like immediately, like, first of all, like just shocked that I would do such a thing. And then immediately was like, are you insane? Like never, ever. And I was like, well, I don't think I would ever get that opportunity again in my life, but fine, I'll never do it again. But so that one always stands out just because my dad tells it so much better. And then I'd say the most recent one, which actually just happened a couple months ago, right before our schedule release. And this is like my favorite one so far since working here. We got like a late afternoon meeting thrown on our schedule. Obviously everything's virtual right now with, the year we're having. And it's not unheard of that we get a late conference call thrown on, and it was Friday afternoon. So we all jump in, like whatever, like, let's see what's up. And we knew the schedule change was coming out, or schedule's announcement was coming out. And so I thought we were just going to be going over those changes. And we're all kind of looking through. There's some, people that aren't normally in our team's conference calls. So we're peeking through, and finally we're all like, wait, that says Dale Earnhardt Jr. And kind of like, you think someone's playing a joke, right? You all type your name in when you're jumping into a conference call. We're like, all right, this is funny. Someone just thinks they're being cool and pretending Dale Jr. is on our conference call. But no, Chip Lyle was in there, who's the track president for Daytona, and introduces Dale Jr. and he jumps in and like talks to our team for a little bit, which was a very cool just experience overall, just to kind of hear him kind of pump up the schedule that we were going to have released the next week and kind of thank us for the year we've had and all the work we've done. So that was definitely, I'd say, probably the most recent, like just work related memory from this year that I'll definitely be taking away for sure.
So real quick, I have to know, how hard was it you to hide your excitement? I mean, you're on a call, you're on a business call, or were you allowed to just, let your fandom fly and be super excited he was on there?
I think it was like one of those things where it was like, you didn't really know what to do. Like, we were like, wait, what is this happening? And it just happened so quickly. And then the other side of it was like, there was like a record button up in the top corner. So we all knew we were being recorded. so I was like, all right. So I'm pretty low key anyway. So I was able to reel it in, but there were some other folks you just heard, like, cause we're all on this same floor, pretty much our team. And you could kind of hear the whole floor just like gasp. Where obviously everyone's on mute. So like any reactions we had like out loud, no one else, well, I'm sure for whoever who was recording it, probably could tell, but overall I was able to reel it in, some others not so much, but it was really cool.
That's awesome. Joe, I think that's all the questions that I have. I mean, where are you at? What are we at with our time limits?
Oh, no time limits. I wanted to make sure we got through, those moments as a fan. Those are always so crucial to why you're still a fan today. And obviously, you continue to have those moments if you work where Brittany works or who Brittany works with. I just want to thank you for your time. I know you went into the office to talk with us, and
Of course.
it was really, really nice, I think, for people who may want to get into one of these divisions, whether it be NASCAR or IndyCar or NHRA. You don't have to be a driver. You don't have to have necessarily an on-track racing background. I mean, you just use LinkedIn to say, hey, I have experience doing this, and now you get to have the best background of anybody on the call today. So it's definitely a nice plus.
Thank you. And I do, Brittany Coffey, the other Brittany Coffey, she did phone in and she's dying to know where the name came from on the podcast, the One Lap Down.
Oh, well, that's a great question. Yeah. So we were, myself and my girlfriend were looking at basically just racing terms. And I believe before that conversation with her, Brad and I were talking about how we didn't want this to seem like we're professionals and we know everything and, that kind of stuff. So we wanted to be more fan-based. So I was just going through the list and I saw blue markers, or back markers, black back markers. And then I thought about blue flags being a lap down. And if we actually raced, we'd probably be a couple laps down. So that was pretty much tongue in cheek. We're going to go with that. We're going to be one lap down and hang out in the back, but we're going to have a good time while we're back there, essentially. So
there you go.
That's where it came from.
Speaking of not being experts, I guess that does kind of bring one more question I have, Brittany, somebody who's working, in the racing world and has been a fan. For us new fans, for people that are kind of new or want to get into it, what are kind of the top 3 ways that you think you can get into the sport, and the best 3 ways that you would recommend somebody that wants to get into NASCAR, especially, but doesn't really know how?
I would say the first thing you got to do is you got to find a driver. Something huge that my family does, whether we're all just watching as a group at home or we're here trackside. We haven't obviously done it in a while, but basically if you're a race fan, a lot of things that draw people in are going to be the wrecks. So we basically take dollar bets and you get to pick, we'll break the race down into segments. So say it'll be laps 1 through 20. Everyone puts $1 down for that. A lap they get to pick, and you can kind of bet on which lap there's going to be a wreck on, and if you win that pot for that segment, we'll call it. And so that has coming to the track, people that are either watching at home and just want to put it on and find something that's going to make it entertaining for them and find someone to cheer for. First of all, like I said, finding a driver, but just finding a way that's going to kind of keep you interested in, like I said, we've brought new fans out to the track, and my family, they've done this game for as long as I can remember, whether, like I said, we're sitting at home on a couch or sitting in the stands here. And new people enjoy that. It gives them someone to cheer for every time. And then, like I said, a wreck, everybody cheers for wrecks, it seems like. So that's, as a new fan, that's something else to watch for. So I'd say a driver, a game. Third thing, I'd say just find overall like good company, right? Like find someone, if you can find anybody, like jumping in Facebook groups, like that's new to me. I haven't been doing that a lot, but I have a couple clients that have invited me into some Facebook groups that if you find your favorite driver or a specific track that's near you and you want to go and say, hey, look, I want to find a group of people that I want to go to this race with. The Facebook groups are so popular amongst NASCAR fans. So I think if you can do, any of those three things, you're going to kind of find either people to hang out with or just something that's going to draw you in to keep watching the races.
Yeah, that's a good point, because that was one thing. My other friend who I went to college with, who's been a huge racing fan all of his life, and when the first race came around in May, he was like, you have no excuse. You have to watch it with us. So my girlfriend and I watched it with him and his wife, and we didn't miss a NASCAR race after that. I mean, we watched everything together, and it was virtual, right? We had our computer set up on the side, and we would always like grill wings or do something. Everybody kind of showed off what they were cooking. So that's a good point. That's something that I think that definitely made it enjoyable, and have somebody that kind of knows what they're talking about.
Yeah.
That's why I got Joe for a lot of those reasons too. He knows more than me with that. I just provide the commentary, I guess.
It's a great team. It's a great setup, the way that it is. And the cool thing is, I think from that fan perspective, is that we're all used to what we're doing right now with our laptops. So that togetherness, even if you're not together on race day, is going to be more like this, than ever has been before, which should continue to keep the sport at a high level, because it certainly is one where you watch a 500-mile race by yourself and there isn't anybody around to enjoy it with. You tend to want to flip over to something else, maybe come back to it later. But when you're with a group, it makes it a lot harder to do that. So anybody who's watching or listening, I concur with what Brittany said. I think that's a fantastic way to get involved. And your first race of the 2021 season generally has some wrecks, so it's a good bet to take on that job. So, Brittany, thank you so much for your time. Seriously, this has been fantastic. We love your support of the show by coming on today. Got to give a shout out to your sister-in-law, also Brittany Coffey, for tagging you to kind of put you on our radar. But nevertheless, this has been fantastic, and look forward to maybe catching up once the season starts and kind of getting, more of an inside look as to how things are going on the fan standpoint. Of
course. Thanks for having me. And everyone outside this room is pretty jealous. So if you guys ever need more people on, just let me know and I'll find you some people.
Absolutely.
Yes. Love it.
Thank you so much.
Of course, guys. Thank you.